and that is ACC Record Predictions. We're going through all 17 teams, and we're going to start with the Miami Hurricanes because we haven't talked about them enough on this show. Miami, I've already said that this is a team that went 13-3 last year. They made a national championship appearance. They were at the 50-yard line, had a chance to drive and potentially win the national championship in their home building against Indiana. They didn't do that, but they finished the year 13-3 and were the national runner-ups. I've already said that I think this Miami team has a chance to be better than they were last year. And that it's very rare that I say that, given the team just came off of a national championship appearance. Going through their schedule, pretty manageable. It is a pretty manageable schedule, but I believe they upgraded at the quarterback position. I believe with the returning talent that is Malachi Toney, with the additions that they made in the portal with Cooper Barkate, who is Darian Mensa's leading receiver at Duke last year, I have no worries about the offensive line because I know who's coaching them. That's Mario Cristobal. I trust Miami's defensive coordinator, Corey Heatherman, that despite the losses that they had due to the NFL draft and things of that sort, the defense is going to be fine. So really, just going through Miami's schedule, the only toss-up that I see is that Notre Dame game, and I have that circled. That is November 7th. That is in South Bend. They've already announced the kickoff time. It's 6:30 on NBC. I have Miami going 11-1 this year, with their only loss coming to Notre Dame. And I believe that's week 11. I want to say that's week 11, week 10, something like that. That is the only time I see Miami slipping up. Partly because I'm that high on Notre Dame, and also, too, Miami going to play a game in South Bend, Indiana, early November. That just doesn't mesh. So I have Miami going 11-1. And the teams that I think will be, Miami's in a tier of their own right now in the ACC. You move to tier 2. There are a couple teams that I really, really like. Dark horses, if I might add. That is the Louisville Cardinals, who actually open up their season in Nashville. I will be in attendance at the game, so we'll have coverage from Nissan Stadium when they have Ole Miss. That's going to be a really fun game. Two teams that will be. I expect Louisville wasn't in the coaches poll, but I expect Louisville to be represented in the AP poll when it comes out, and that's going to be a fun game because Ole Miss is a consensus top 10 team. And they're taking on another top 25 team. That's going to be really fun. If Louisville, I expect them to lose that first game in week 1. But even if they find a way to squeak by Ole Miss, the rest of their schedule, they have SMU in there, who I'm actually going to talk about next. They play a game at NC State. They don't have to go to Stanford, and they don't have to go to Cal, which saves them a lot of travel. With SMU, them being in Texas, they get to host SMU in Louisville. It's a very manageable schedule. So I could talk myself into Louisville going 10-2. I don't think that's going to happen. I wanted to make room for error. I have Louisville going 9-3. And if they're 9-3, that means that they could potentially be playing a team. And I'm not even going to spoil it. Miami, I just said they're in a tier of their own, so I expect Miami to be playing in the ACC championship game. Could Louisville be playing them? Let's move on to SMU. So I am extremely high on SMU's quarterback this year. Kevin Jennings, this is a guy that if you haven't watched him play, he started in their playoff game a couple years ago when they went to Penn State. Didn't look great. But Kevin Jennings has NFL arm talent written all over him. I highly recommend that you go watch him closely if you haven't already. An ACC schedule compared to some of the schedules that are present in the Big Ten this year, that are present in the SEC this year, it's not exactly a murderer's row. So I'm not going to go through and list the schedule of every team. I have SMU going 9-3. But that game that I'm circling is week 3 when they're at Louisville. I believe that game determines who Miami will play in the ACC championship come early December. let's move on to the Clemson Tigers, a team that we literally just talked about. They're at LSU in week 1. The Battle of the Tigers, the battle of the Death Valleys. I believe College Game Day is going to be there. That'll be an ABC nighttime kickoff, 6:30 Central Time. Listen, I tried. I like Dabo Swinney. I like Clemson. I have no ill will towards Clemson. I tried to talk myself into Clemson being better than 7-5 this year, and I just couldn't do it. There are too many question marks. They do have Miami this year. They have South Carolina at the end of the year, like they have every year, and I don't know what to expect from South Carolina this year. They have to go to Cal, and I actually like Cal this year. I think Cal is the dark horse in the ACC, but they have to travel 3 time zones to play them. That's not an easy task. They play at Syracuse in early November, and Clemson has had a really tough time playing at Syracuse. So at best, I see Clemson going 7-5. At best, I have them going 6-6, which would be good enough for them to get to a bowl game. Some people, I won't name names. I won't name drop. Some people believe Dabo Swinney is going to get fired if Clemson goes 6-6. I am not in that group. I think Dabo Swinney, well, I don't think I know, he's the most successful coach in Clemson football history. He's the only guy that was able to go toe-to-toe with Nick Saban in his prime, beat him twice, win 2 national championships. You're not firing a guy like that, even if Clemson does go 6-6. I believe Dabo Swinney, he could go 0-12 at Clemson this year. He could go 0-12. Dabo Swinney's legacy has already been cemented. He's not getting fired if they go 6-6, which I actually have them going. Let's move on to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is a team that's going to get a lot of hype. Why? Because they hired James Franklin to be their next head coach, which I think was a great move by them, honestly. I went back earlier today, and I looked at James Franklin's previous stops as a head coach. He was at Penn State as early as last year. Before that, he was at Vanderbilt. And in his first season as Vanderbilt's head coach, they went 6-7. Went 6-6 in the regular season, lost the bowl game. In his first year at Penn State, they went 7-6. So I look at Virginia Tech's schedule. I haven't seen their quarterback, Ethan Grunkemeyer, playing enough games. I don't believe he has enough experience to know what he is at this point in time. If Virginia Tech was able to go 7-5 or 6-6 this year, compared to where they have been the last couple of years, I actually do have Virginia Tech going 6-6. I think that's a successful first year. Them getting back to a bowl game, them at least being in the national spotlight, they're being talked about. I think that's a successful year. Now, that's not going to fly, but I think there has to be a little bit of patience involved when it comes to Virginia Tech and James Franklin. Moving on with the ACC, we got 17 teams that we got to go through record predictions here, and I've already kind of spoiled what I think the conference championship matchup is going to be. What about Georgia Tech? Georgia Tech was a fun team last year. Went 8-4 in the regular season, actually ended up losing the bowl game, so they finished 8-5. No, I'm sorry. They went 9-3 in the regular season, lost the bowl game, finished 9-4. They lose Haynes King, who has been a foundational piece for them at quarterback. But the thing about Brent Key is there's never going to be any conversation about what Georgia Tech's identity is as long as he's there. They have a 1-2 punch at running back. They're going to play good defense. That is the secret sauce. Run the ball, play good defense. They bring in at quarterback Alberto Mendoza, who the younger brother of Fernando. And what I heard out of spring practice was it was very up and down, where he may have a play that has your jaw on the ground, and then he follows that up with 2 head scratchers. So I don't know I'm not judging Alberto Mendoza based off what he did in the spring, because he could be a completely different quarterback by the time he gets to the regular season. But for Georgia Tech, what they lost last year and how much they do not return from last year's team, I think 7-5 is fair. So I have Georgia Tech going 7-5. Pitt, there's a really good chance that Pitt could be 7-0 by the time they play Miami, at Miami, by the way, on October 24th. Now, I have them going 6-1 by the time they have to play Miami. Pitt got off to a really good start last year. Really good start. But the back half of the regular season was rough. They lost to Notre Dame. They lost to Miami. So they didn't finish their regular season on a good note. I talked about this when I was going through the underrated quarterbacks in college football. Pitt has a quarterback by the name of Mason Heinschel, who was a true freshman last year. He returns. Really high on Mason Heinschel, but I have Pitt going 7-5. We got to move quickly here because we got off to a little bit of a rocky start with the audio issues and making up for lost time here. With Cal, I love the hires that they made in the offseason with the coaching staff. Love their quarterback, JKS, as he's referred to on the show. If you want the long version, Jaron Kialwe Sagapogatele. I really pride myself on mastering that pronunciation. Really good quarterback. 5-star coming out of high school. Was at Oregon, now at Cal. He's a fun watch. So if you happen to be staying up late watching some Cal football, that's the name you're going to want to know. I have Cal going 8-4 this year. They do have a stretch, though, in their regular season where they're at SMU, they're at NC State, and they're at Virginia. There is a bye week sandwiched in between that NC State-Virginia game, but all three of those games are on the road, and you have to cross a couple of time zones coming from Cal. So that's going to be tough, but I have Cal going 8-4. Virginia, I just don't see it being a reasonable expectation that they're going to replicate the kind of success that they had last year. I have Virginia going 8-4. Bo Pribula is looking like he's going to be their starting quarterback, a transfer from Missouri. Before that was at Penn State. Solid quarterback, but I have Virginia going 8-4. NC State, a team that when they don't get buzz, when they don't get talked about, that's typically when they have their better seasons. I could talk myself into NC State going 9-3 this year. I have them going 8-4. I think CJ Bailey, also like Kevin Jennings, two guys that you probably don't hear talked about a lot on the big national shows, but they're two quarterbacks under the radar with NFL arm talent out the wazoo. So I highly recommend that you watch them. So I have NC State going 8-4. Florida State, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for Florida State. It's going to be rough for old Mike Norvell. Not like we're rooting against him or anything. It's just crazy how far Florida State football has fallen since that year that they went undefeated in the regular season. It was unfortunate they lost Jordan Travis. It's just been really unlucky for Florida State football. It's a harder schedule in the ACC. I have Florida State going 4-8. If Florida State goes 4-8, Mike Norvell's gone. He is no longer on the hot seat because he does not have a job. So I think Mike Norvell, this is the year that he's fired. Florida State tried to hold on to him long enough. He does have a pretty big buyout, which is something that they have to factor into all this. Probably why they've held on to him for so long. But I have Florida State going 4-8 this year. Do not have a lot of hope for Florida State. And if they don't make a bowl, it's Mike Norvell is getting fired. So that's kind of plainly put. For Duke was a team that was just ravaged by the transfer portal. The good news is they have a really good returning running back by the name of Nate Shepard, who's going to carry that offense. They do have some returning production on the interior of that offensive line. It's still not going to be what it was last year, right, with Duke winning the ACC. I have them making a bowl. I have them going 6-6 this year. Let's move on to Wake Forest. Wake Forest, I don't see it 4-8. I have Wake Forest going 4-8. North Carolina, a team also, Wake Forest, North Carolina in the same state. Man, we have railed. I mean, we've not been kind to Bill Belichick on this show. We really haven't. But it's just kind of the nature of this business. And when you put a microphone in front of my face, I have to say my thoughts. It's not been good for North Carolina, and it's only gotten worse. The clown show's only gotten worse with the news of Michael Lombardi. And today, Steve Belichick, the son of Bill, was put on medical leave, and there was actually a written part in Bill Belichick's contract when he retired. Steve Belichick was next in line to be the head coach. He's on medical leave. I don't know the details of it, and I'm not going to speculate. It's just not a good looking operation right now, plainly put. North Carolina's going 3-9 this year, which was actually one game worse than what they did last year. That was 4-8. If there was any year for North Carolina to be good, it would have been last year. The schedule was basically handpicked by the coaching staff. Very easy. I mean, you give an SEC team that schedule, and they might be in the playoff. But for North Carolina, I just don't see a lot of hope. I don't see this ending well whatsoever. And I think this is the final year for Bill Belichick in Chapel Hill. I have North Carolina going 3-9. Syracuse, much of the same. They were picked to finish second to last in the ACC. I have them going 4-8. Boston College, I have them going 3-9. Not a lot of good things to talk about with Boston College, and there might be less good things to talk about with the next team, the final team, Stanford. I have Stanford going 3-9. It's also a rough situation out there in California for Stanford. So those are my ACC record predictions. Now let's get to the conference championship prediction. So I already spoiled it. Miami's playing in the ACC. They're going to win the ACC. But the team they will be playing is the SMU Mustangs. Again, that if you're looking for underrated games to watch, that week 3 game when SMU is at Louisville, that game will determine who Miami is going to play in the ACC championship. I think SMU wins. I think SMU goes on to play Miami in the ACC championship, and Miami wins, and they get to the college football playoff.